What would you say is your biggest success?
I've got lots of things that I would consider a success, but I guess we've touched on it already. Probably the biggest success was taking a £1 billion business like New Look through a pandemic, through something that none of us have experienced, refinancing the business, having to do a CVA, and coming out of it with 10,000 colleagues' jobs still intact. You know, refinances are not easy. CVAs certainly aren't easy. But you know, when you're faced with potentially having to put a business into administration or doing a CVA and hopefully getting the CVA approved by all the creditors and securing 10,000 colleagues, that's quite an achievement.
Is it quite difficult then to sort of, you say, get quite tense to manage those professional relationships then if you do react in that way?
I mean, the thing is, I'm very fortunate. I've done it for being a C-suite member for 15 years, I've done 5 CEO appointments, and I think you build in confidence. You know, you learn about how to manage relationships with suppliers, with key people in the business, with board members, with chairmen. And the one thing I've learned is be your normal self. Don't try and be someone else. You know. So from my point of view, I'm the Nigel in work and the Nigel out work. I'm not someone different between the two.
You touched upon the violence. Companies like the Co-op are talking more about this in public, and the police, are trying to raise awareness. But there's increasing violence against shop workers, increasing shoplifting as well. Is that something that you have to deal with at American Golf?
Yeah, I mean it's shocking, and our colleagues in the whole of the retail industry shouldn't have to put up with some of the things that they have to. It's unfortunately that this is one of the situations we have to face, and the government are saying that they are committed to helping us as an industry, and they need to, because it shouldn't, as a shop worker, you shouldn't be having to face some of the things that are, and we probably don't face quite as much in American Golf as maybe a Co-op or a food store or some of the other retailers, but we still have our fair share. We have people coming into our stores and trying to steal a full set of clubs. Now, it's difficult to imagine, but we've got video evidence of people with, a 3 wood down their trousers trying to walk out, and there's lots of stories like that. We stopped a gentleman, a young lad actually, in one of our stores with a rucksack, and he dismantled the head off a full set of woods, and so he'd put the shafts down his trousers, and he had all the heads in his rucksack.
It's difficult to believe.
It is, and I've got the evidence. I've got the video.
Welcome to Boardroom Uncovered, brought to you by City A.M, the interview series featuring the top bosses of the biggest and best known companies operating in the UK today. My name's John Robinson, City A.M's UK editor. In this edition, I'll be speaking to the CEO of American Golf, Nigel Oddy. After starting his career on the shop floor at Marks & Spencer's in the late 1970s, he's risen through the ranks and been the CEO of household names such as House of Fraser, The Range, New Look and Matalan. Oddy took over as CEO of American Golf in April 2023, following a turbulent time during the COVID-19 pandemic, and was tasked with turning around the national retailer by its private equity backer Endless. Since then, the company has significantly cut its losses and stated that it's on a firmer footing for the future. Without further ado, let's dive in.
Hi there.
Hi Nigel, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. Good to meet you.
Welcome to Boardroom Uncovered.
Thank you very much indeed.
Let's jump straight in, shall we?
Yeah, great.
I'm interested to know, what kind of a CEO are you? They come in all shapes and sizes.
Well, that's a very good question. What an opening question. I guess I'm a CEO who likes the detail. I also, trust the team I have around me. I couldn't say I'm a relaxed CEO. I'm probably, times get quite tense, but I love it. I love dealing with situations, with the day-to-day running of the business. Yeah, I love everything about it. I'm not too sure whether that answers it fully.
Is it quite difficult then to sort of, get quite tense to manage those professional relationships then if you do react in that way?
I mean, the thing is, I'm very fortunate. I've done it for being a C-suite member for 15 years. I've done 5 CEO appointments, and I think you build in confidence. You learn about how to manage relationships with suppliers, with key people in the business, with board members, with chairmen. And the one thing I've learned is be your normal self. Don't try and be someone else, So from my point of view, I'm the Nigel in work and the Nigel out work. I'm not someone different between the two.
Is that something you've learned over your C-suite career then? Did you try and be that boss at the start?
It's funny because you suddenly get propelled to being a CEO and you think, what does that mean? What do I have to do? And you do, you have to learn as you go along to a certain extent. I mean, over the years, 40 years in retail, you see good CEOs during that time and not so good CEOs during that time. And I guess from your first appointment onwards, you start to develop that, what you see to be the good CEO. Whilst, in my view, it's so important to retain your own personality as well.
I suppose there's no playbook that somebody gives you on your first day as a CEO.
It's absolutely, totally agree with you. It's not like you can go and read, this is how to be a CEO. That just doesn't happen. You go in there, maybe on day one you're dealing with a major issue, and you're thinking, hopefully you've got the right team around you to help, but you're thinking, how do I deal with it? You put that one, once you dealt with it, to one side, and then the next thing that comes along, you may say, I remember the last time that happened.
Yeah.
And you gradually build upon that, and you build in experience, and you build in knowledge. But the most important thing for me is to retain that personality of Nigel in mine, obviously, from my point of view.
Well, think back to your first ever day as a CEO and think about how you are today. How's Nigel changed over that time as the top boss?
I remember the first time I was a CEO, and it was at House of Fraser. And the Monday I was there, you go into the trading meeting on a Monday and everyone's looking at you, right, what are you going to say? 15 years on, I will go into the meeting and the guys will, over to you guys. I don't have to say everything. I don't have to give all the direction. Part of it is listening and learning. And I think when you are first appointed, you almost think you've got to do all the everything, Well, that was my sort of view. But as you grow in that role and maybe go to your second one and a third one and a fifth one and 5 very different businesses, I think more and more I've learned that it is about learning and listening to the team. But the key to that is you've got to have the right team around you. And in many cases, probably in all 5 businesses I've been to, that's involved some difficult decisions around people to get that right team.
Some people start their own business and they award themselves the title of CEO because that's important to them. The title is so much part of their self-worth when it comes to work. What does the title mean to you? I'm not really a titles person. I am the CEO. Someone has to be the boss, and I'm very lucky. Well, not so much lucky, but I'm hoping it's partly to do with the fact I've done a good job. But, I'm very fortunate to have that role and that position and that title. You can't have more than one in a business. You just can't, and I've got that. And so what's it mean to me? Ultimately, I will, have to make the final decision if it's required. If a decision can't be made by the team, I have to do that. There may be instances where we've got to do a restructure or a CVA or a refinance, and the buck ends with you. You've got to make that decision along with the support and the knowledge and listening to the directors and the non-executives around you. But the final buck ends up with you. You've made a lot of those decisions. When you're at New Look, you had to go through a CVA. You've gone through restructures. Does it get any easier to make those difficult decisions when they impact people's lives? I don't think they do. And you touch on New Look. I mean, New Look was probably one of the toughest times. Maybe I just reflect on that for a moment. March the 20th, 2020, we all suddenly heard that the business and the company was shutting down. The country we were going to face a pandemic that none of us had ever experienced. I had 10,000 colleagues looking at me saying, so what does it mean to me, Nigel? And the reality was we didn't really know, because none of us had dealt with it. So, you were learning as you went along. You were making, hopefully, the right decisions. And we did refinance the business. We did have to do a CVA. I then came along to another situation a couple of years on and had to do a refinance again. At least I knew the process. I knew how to go through that process. So it never gets easier, but
a bit of knowledge does help. And with the pandemic, none of us really had a huge amount of knowledge because it was new to all of us. But our colleagues around us were, as CEOs, they were looking to us and saying, well, surely you know what to do. Yeah. And the reality was you didn't necessarily know. You had to listen, you had to absorb all the information around you and take what you believe to be the right final decision.
Well, of course, those hard decisions impact real people's lives. Does that weigh on you at the time, or is it temptation just to think they're numbers on a spreadsheet?
I never would look at a colleague as being a number on a spreadsheet. And decisions in restructures, decisions in if one has to do redundancies, it always comes back to, that's an individual there. But what you have to do is you have to, at the end of the day, do what's right for the business. Does it get any easier? No. I've got to say the first time you do it is pretty tough. And so I'm not for 1 minute suggesting it gets easier, but as you've done more and you understand the consequences, I guess you can it helps you to manage the emotion inside you a bit better. Let's
pull it back to the present day. I'm interested to know about your daily routine. What does a CEO do first thing in the morning before work?
Before work, I always check the figures. I've always been brought up, and it's a well-known phrase in our industry, retail is detail. I get the figures. The first figures come through at 6 a.m. in the morning. I'm always in the gym at 6 a.m. And so the gym and the figures are the first thing I do. I love to see how the previous day's gone. I'm hoping that the figures are green rather than red, because that can determine the day. But my routine is very much work out, check the figures, and then in the office.
And what does a CEO of your caliber? What do you have for breakfast in the morning then after the gym session?
Very good question. I tend to have, depending on whether it's weekend or weekdays, I try and be relatively healthy. So it'd be a light cereal and a coffee.
You've joined American Golf about a year ago.
Yeah.
You've helped turn around the business. You've cut the losses. Revenue's up. EBITDA is now positive. But why did you join American Golf? What was it that attracted you to a business like this?
It's an interesting story. So I had was just coming to the end of a fixed-term contract, doing a recapitalisation at Matalan. I genuinely thought I was going to take some time out, having never had any time out in my entire career. And I got a phone call from the chairman of American Golf, who was also had been one of my non-executives at New Look. And he said, "Nigel, I hear you're about to leave Matalan." I said, "Yeah, my contract's up very soon." He said, "I've got the perfect job for you." So I said, what's that? He said, "Well, I know you love being a CEO. I know you love golf. I've put the two together and I want you to come and run American Golf as the CEO." And that was it. So it was no major process. It was, something that to me, it was straight away, right, I want to go there. Yeah, it sounds great. And, I've loved virtually every day for the past year.
So you've always been an avid golfer then? It wasn't something that you've picked up over the last year?
Probably not an avid golfer and certainly not a good golfer, but I enjoy playing golf. And this has given me that, the opportunity to perhaps play some of the top courses, certainly around the country, as well as running a reasonably good sized business as well.
Of course, you play golf. As you said, you go into the gym every morning.
Yeah.
And you're a keen runner as well.
Yeah, that's my main hobby outside of golf and work is I love running and always have done.
And how serious are you?
These days it's 10k a day, 8 to 10k a day. A bit younger, a bit fitter. I was doing 80 miles a week and running marathons.
You say that so nonchalantly.
Well, yeah.
Do you take any learnings from that, the discipline of running into your life as a CEO?
Certainly when I was training hard and, I was top 100 in the New York Marathon, never run a marathon slower than 2 hours 40, best 2 hours 32. And, that requires discipline. It requires you to constantly be thinking about how you can improve yourself. Should you train a bit harder? Should you be trained a bit differently? Should you take a coach, a coach to help you, not a coach with wheels? So should you, how do you get that time down from 1:20 to 1:15 for a half marathon to 1:11, which is what my PB was 70 minutes. So it's that constantly looking at it, looking at the detail and how you can improve. And it's those aspects that I then have taken back into business. How do I improve my, the way I run a business? How do I improve in myself? How do I push myself a bit harder? The detail, there's no harm in having a coach or a mentor in a business. In the same way, it's great to have a coach when you're training hard. So it's those aspects that I've really taken from sport and a pastime and put it into my work.
You seem to be quite across the figures, whether it's American golf or whether it's running or playing golf. Does that help motivate you to continue to try and, improve American golf as it is?
I'm absolutely obsessed with the figures. I always have done. It comes back to the retailer's detail. I love the figures. I push myself harder to improve the performance as an individual, as a business, or previously when I was racing, on a pretty serious basis.
Looking back over your C-suite career, not just at American Golf, but House of Fraser, The Range, and you've worked for M&S as well, and most recently Matalan. Yeah. What would you say is your biggest success?
I've got lots of things that I would consider a success, but I guess we've touched on it already. Probably the biggest success was taking a £1 billion business like New Look through a pandemic, through something that none of us have experienced, refinancing the business, having to do a CVA, and coming out of it with 10,000 colleagues' jobs still intact. Refinances are not easy. CVAs certainly aren't easy. But when you're faced with potentially having to put a business into administration or doing a CVA and hopefully getting the CVA approved by all the creditors and securing 10,000 colleagues, that's quite an achievement.
And no career, of course, is a straight line up.
Absolutely not.
What's your biggest failure?
Wow. That's a very good question. I'm sure there's lots. Interesting one. I did 23 years with Marks and Spencer. I took a decision to move after a long time. Went to work for a business called First Sport. Within 6 months, it was sold to JD Sports, and I was made redundant. 23 years in one business, 6 months, and suddenly without a job. It felt like a huge failure. Now, that wasn't my fault. The team who took over First Sport, i.e. the JD team, didn't require the management team. So it wasn't a reflection on my performance. But it's hard when you've done 23 years, you're up at an executive level with M&S, and you suddenly find yourself without a job thinking, what am I going to do now? And that, in my mind, because that's the way my mind ticks, that felt like a failure.
How did you feel in that moment? So you must have felt like...
Sick.
Yeah.
And why the heck did I decide to leave Marks and Spencer, and suddenly find myself without a job? But, I reflect on that now. Within a matter of weeks, months, I had a new job. And, the way I look at it now is once one chapter ends, usually another chapter begins. And, that was the start of the movement towards getting towards the C-suite and beyond that to CEO. So, but it didn't feel quite that way at the time, let me tell you.
And you started on the shop floor at M&S. Did you ever think that you'd make it to the top of a business? Let alone thought.
You're absolutely right. I mean, funnily enough, we're now back in Warrington with American Golf. My first job was as a sales assistant with Marks and Spencer in Warrington. So, it's gone a full circle. So I started in Warrington and then back in Warrington. I was given a counter to look after a children's sock counter. And I just didn't want to just sort of run the socks. I wanted to know which ones sold best. So I started to learn the sales. And I learned the sales of every single individual item. And, the manager used to come round and, this guy, he seems to like figures, which is what you've just touched on. And sure enough, I knew everything. I laid it out proportionally, made sure it was all tickety-boo. And someone said that guy should, he should be moved on, and gradually moved. But never at any point did I think that one day I could be running, a £1 billion business such as New Look or The Range or House of Fraser, etc.
When did you think this might be a possibility that you could be a top boss at somewhere like House of Fraser? There must have been that moment where you thought, actually, this is an attainable goal for me.
I think when I got up to I was running some of the biggest stores in Marks and Spencer, and then went into buying, and then I got to executive level, and you start to think, the top of the triangle is getting closer. I've come from that very large piece at the bottom, and it's gradually getting tighter and tighter. And that was when I reached that executive level in Marks and Spencer, I thought, the next one has got to be C-suite. And that's when I sort of thought I can get there, probably not within Marks and Spencer, but somewhere else. And I guess that's probably when I thought I can get there.
And getting to the top of the tree, the sacrifices that's got to be made along the way. Did you ever think, well, I'd want to get there, I can get there, but the sacrifices may be a bit too much for me? Did you ever reflect on that? I
did. And I think personal sacrifices, I have had to make some, and along the way. But have I enjoyed what I've achieved, and have I felt proud of what I've achieved? Absolutely. And these things, as you've just said, they're not a straight line. You have your ups and downs. You do have to make sacrifices at times. Sometimes, whilst I've enjoyed every day in my career, some days you are absolutely exhausted, thinking, what the heck am I doing this for?
Do you think that if somebody joined American Golf now on the shop floor, that they in 30 years could make it to the top of the business? Do you think that that's still a genuine career path these days?
Absolutely. Perhaps it's not the sexiest of industries that it was. We hear lots of, disappointing news about the retail industry, whether it's shop shutting, whether it's violence towards shop workers, but there's still an awful lot of good things about the industry. And I would encourage anyone who wants to, have a great rapport with customers, with the general public, different people. You don't know who's going to come through the door next. The people you'll meet, the people you'll talk to, the opportunities that will progress. I believe, I'm the strongest advocate for retail. I believe they're still there. And I think there is a great career to be had within retail, as much now as there was, when I started on the shop floor in Mornington. You
touched upon the violence. Companies like the Co-op are talking more about this in public, and the police, are trying to raise awareness. But there's increasing violence against shop workers, increasing shoplifting as well. Is that something that you have to deal with at American Golf?
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking, and our colleagues in the whole of the retail industry shouldn't have to put up with some of the things that they have to. It's unfortunately that this is one of the situations we have to face, and the government are saying that they are committed to helping us as an industry, and they need to, because it shouldn't. As a shop worker, you shouldn't be having to face some of the things that are. And we probably don't face quite as much in American Golf as maybe a Co-op or a food store or some of the other retailers, but we still have our fair share. We have people coming into our stores and trying to steal a full set of clubs. Now, it's difficult to imagine, but we've got video evidence of people with, a 3 wood down their trousers trying to walk out, and there's lots of stories like that. We stopped a gentleman, a young lad actually, in one of our stores with a rucksack, and he dismantled the head off a full set of woods, and so he'd put the shafts down his trousers, and he had all the heads in his rucksack.
It's difficult to believe.
It is, but I've got the evidence, I've got the video, but those are the things we have to put up with, And he was stopped at the door. And it was great that our colleague did. We say to all our colleagues, don't put yourself into too much of a situation where it could result in violence. You could be injured. But fortunately, this colleague stopped the lad, and we recovered them, and no one was injured.
What do you want the government to do then to protect the retail sector?
I think we've got to take it more seriously. We've got to ensure that they get the support from the police, and if we get that sort of situation, we need to know that the police forces are, and I know that they are very busy in a whole host of other things. Don't get me wrong, but when we dial 999 and say we've got the incident, we would like to think we can get that support to help us immediately.
I want to talk a little bit about Netflix.
Yes.
And we've just had the second series
Correct.
of a golf's version of Drive to Survive, Full
Correct.
Swing.
Yep.
Obviously, golf is a very popular sport
Yes.
in the UK, as you well know.
Yes.
But it will have brought golf to a different audience. Have you seen an increase in sales of interest in your products after the two series have been published?
Again, it's a very good question. It's very difficult unless a customer says, I'm wanting to start because I've just watched the Netflix series. It's very difficult to say. We love anything that brings golf to the front. So, whether it be the Live Tour, whether it be the Masters, or whether it be a Netflix series, if it raises the awareness of it and brings new people, it's good for the industry and it's good for American golf as a leader of the golf retail industry in the UK. You
mentioned Live. Yeah. Obviously, it's controversial for many reasons.
It's controversial, but it also, it sparks discussion.
Yeah,
it puts golf on the front pages, or certainly the back pages of the papers, and discussion online. So from our point of view, if it's helping again to raise awareness of the golf as a sport and the golf industry, then from my point of view as a CEO of a retailer in golf, I'm not complaining about it.
You don't have a problem with the controversial elements of Live Golf?
I think it's a very interesting one. We'll see how it pans out. And I sort of, when I reflect on it, I think in a way it's in a similar way cricket has evolved. You used to have the county championship, a couple of one-day matches, and then the 5-day tests. And then along came the 50-over matches, and then came along the T20. So we've gone from a 3/4 5-day match to a T20 of just 20 overs, a quicker game that you can go to in the evening. It may be that the Live eventually becomes a quicker tournament than perhaps the current tournament. So if that does it, then it brings more golfers and more people who are interested in it, because it doesn't take 5.5 hours to go round or 4 hours to go round or whatever. Then it can only be good for it.
I guess it's the backing of the Live Tour, which is part of the controversy. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Are you quite relaxed about where the money's coming from?
I'm not a politician. I'm a retailer. It's, there is a lot of change in Saudi Arabia at the moment. Football, they've just recently had their women's tour playing there. Boxing, motor racing, Formula One. So, if it helps sport, I'm not going to go into the politics behind it, but if it helps sport and helps to raise awareness of all those sports and bring more people into the sport, I would have to say I think it's good for sport. But I'm not going to get into the politics behind it all.
Apart from Netflix, obviously golf has got the 4 majors every year, and then every 2 years you've got the Ryder Cup. Yeah. Do those set-piece events impact the sales of American golf?
Of golf generally. So usually the Masters, which is the first one, tends to kick off the golf season, providing it's not raining as it has been this year. But you tend to see your first spike. People will watch the Masters, they'll be inspired, and they'll go out. The nights are starting to get lighter, the days are starting to get longer, it's starting to get warmer usually, and we do tend to see that's the kick-off of the golf season. The British Open will always help, and certainly the Ryder Cup, which last year was in Italy, and that had a huge following, and it sat alongside the Solheim as well last year, so you had the men's and you had the ladies. Almost back to back. That really increased the awareness and the interest in golf. So you do see that mini spike, but it tends to be the Masters that kicks it off, because that sort of starts in the UK, certainly the start of the golf season.
Let's bring it back to American Golf.
Yeah.
You talked recently about treating the customer like they're a VIP.
Yeah.
How do you do that if most of the customers are looking at your website and not going into store?
A lot of our customers look at the website. A lot of our customers do their research first and then come in. We have a first-class free custom fit service in our stores. You can't get that online. If you're looking to spend maybe £1,100 on a set of clubs, irons, or £600 on a driver, you probably want to be fitted. You want to make sure that club is right for you because it's a lot of money. So you'll do your research and then you'll come in and we'll give you a first-class custom fit service. That to me is how our business should work. It's a truly omni-channel business. It's not one channel, another channel. It's two channels working together. And that's what we want. You know, just short of 30% of our turnover is from online, but that does mean 70% is from stores. So if we can get those two channels working harmoniously together, then that to me is great for the business.
And personalisation, is that at the core of your turnaround plan?
So I was looking at the trading pattern. I've come from fashion retail. Fashion retail has a golden quarter, which tends to be October, November, December. And that's when fashion retailers in the main make their money. Golf is very differently. You know, it's May, June, July, and maybe August. That's the golden quarter. So I was saying, how do we get people shopping for golf when maybe, you know, we've got dark mornings, dark evenings, shorter days, worse weather? How do we extend the season? People said to me, customers said to me, in all the customer feedback I had, you know, we come to American Golf to buy a gift for a husband, a wife, a son, a daughter, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, etc. So I'm thinking, why don't we actually extend that service and personalise it? And I looked at one of my previous businesses, Marks and Spencer. They do personalisation, whether it be nightwear, whether it be wines, whether it be glasses. I said, why don't we bring that to golf? So we spoke to a leader in personalisation in the UK, and we said to them, what can we do? And we've come up with a fantastic range: golf balls, polo shirts, hats, even your golf bag, you know. And what we're saying now, if we can get that in December, that gives us an additional business. So you may not be playing, but we've got a big gift business here for all those people that are wanting something ready for the next season, and we'll personalise it. So we just started it last year. We had a very good start. We've got Father's Day coming up. We had a small uplift for Mother's Day. We expect a bigger uplift for Father's Day, and then we'll then keep pushing it. And then we'll also look at golf societies, or, you know, a group of guys or girls who are going to Portugal and they want a polo shirt to say, you know, Nigel on tour, whatever, you know, we can do that. So there's a whole host of stuff we can do around that area of personalisation and golf gifting.
Do you see then that maybe a second golden quarter for a golf retailer could be over that Christmas period then, if you can make that strategy stick?
I'm not. It will never be as big as the actual, you know, golden quarter. But I think what we can do is extend the golfing season and the golf year that bit further, and hopefully the days of saying you can't sell golfing products in December will disappear.
Okay, and obviously, you know, the finances of American Golf have improved over the last year. Revenue's up slightly. Your EBITDA is now positive. Your pre-tax losses have slashed, but you still lost over £5 million in the latest financial year. Do you have a plan to make a pre-tax profit, or because you're private equity backed, are you a little bit more relaxed about that?
I mean, I challenge you on the figures only because, you know, you say we made a 5 million loss. That includes exceptionals. If you strip out the exceptionals, we made an operating profit. Not as big as we would have liked, but, you know, and it was a nearly £6 million improvement on last year. The exceptionals came from the restructures that were done. There were unfortunately some redundancy costs. So, you know, they are one-offs, they're exceptional. So we strip those out and we're back to making operational profit compared with a 5 million loss the previous year. Is that where we want to be? Absolutely not. You know, we've set out to our place now. We've said last year was a reset. We've got a vision in place where we want to be the one-stop shop for everything golf. We are focusing on all those things of golf, that whether it be equipment, whether it be clubs, whether it be apparel, whether it be personalisation, whether it be other aspects of golf, which we can bring in specialists for: golf holidays, golf insurance, those things. So this year was about resetting it. It was about saying, post-COVID, fantastic year, slackened off the following year, made a loss, and now we've got to now reset and start again. So it's been a very good first year, but the job isn't even half done. We've got to now really focus on getting back to being a good retailer, with giving first-class service, treating every customer as a VIP. Trustpilot scores have gone up. We're at 4.5 out of 5. I want to be higher. 88% rate us 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5. 6% only rate us 1 out of 5. So what is that 1%? That's 6% who are only giving us 1. Why are they only giving us 1? What do we do to improve that? I'm talking figures again, I'm sorry, but but those are the things we need to really focus on, and drive that retail experience, whether it be online or in store, working together as an omni-channel retailer. They're the things, as a CEO, as a leader of that business, we need to be focusing on. We're doing a lot of good things, but you learn more from the things that you're not doing as well as those things that you're doing well, because that's how you improve your business. That's how you move forward every day.
Brilliant. Nigel, thank you very much for your time. It's great to speak to you.
Likewise. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.